on to the first presentation, which is in the form of a conversation between Dr. Sayyeda Hamid and Raza. Sayyeda Hamid, of course, needs no introduction. She's an old friend of mine, and she's a writer, commentator, social activist, and she's been very closely associated with the founding and the running of the Muslim Women's Forum. And above all, I think most of you would know that she was a member of the National Commission for Minorities, of Women, and she was also a member, two-term member of the Planning Commission of India. And I think during her membership of the Planning Commission, she played a very critical part in the promotion of the rights of the marginalized through many of the reports that she prepared and, of course, the major interventions that she made in the area of social welfare. So, Sayyeda and Raza ji.
भी बैठी हैं हमारे पास, तो वो शायरा हैं एंड शी, हमने कहा आप इस पे एक नज़म लिख दीजिए, तो उन्होंने एक नज़म लिख दी, तो उसका हमने दोनों ज़बानों, शायद इसमें अंग्रेज़ी में है, एनीवे वी प्रेजेंटेड इट बिफोर यू, तो इसको आप ज़रूर देखिएगा. तो आई एम ऑल्सो वेरी ऑनर्ड कि ख़ानदान के लोग, people of the family who I value greatly because they are so close to me, 4 members of the one individual, one man has featured here, and that man is Dr. Zakir Hussain, and next to him is Mahatma Gandhi in that poster there. So that family is here, and that's a great honor for us. And when I say us, I mean the Max Weber Foundation, Margaret, Nishat, and all the speakers. I mean, it's a real honor. And of course, Mujib Sahab's family is here, and in a sense, I also see Siddiqa Auntie's family here. So slowly people will come in. But anyway, having said that, I apni baat mein shuru karti hu. We will be, people will come and go. This is the nature of these seminars. People will come and go. But I think that the way Nishat and Margaret have explained, इसका contextualize जो उन्होंने किया है, वो हमें लगता है कि पूरी उन्होंने तस्वीर खींच दी है कि हम ये क्यों कर रहे हैं. हम इसलिए कर रहे हैं कि we are opening windows. Young scholars बैठे हैं यहाँ. Now we are the older generation. We are the going generation. We still have memories. There are old people older than us who have memories. This is the time, and I was so hoping, I'm so glad Professor Mujibur Rahman is here. Not too many people from Jamia are here, but I think this needs to be explored. इस पे film बनाएं, इस पे video clips बनाएं, इसको आगे लेके जाएं, किताब लिखें. There's a wealth here. So that is really the purpose of, one of the purpose that was articulated both by Margaret and Nishat, that this is why we are doing this for future generations, कि वो इस बात को आगे लेके जाएं. So I'm just reading it, and I'll try not to read it fully. I want to talk about women of Jamia who are like laborers who carry out instruction of big architects. Mazdoors who built Taj Mahal but never thought of secretly carving their names on the stones they chiseled. Naam to nahi likha unhone, Taj Mahal bana diya. I am speaking of those bygone days when they were full of life, my foremothers, who created what is called a jungle mein mangal, a garden in this wilderness. Women who could have all the comforts had they gone on the beaten track, but were happy to tread this rough terrain, कीकर के पेड़ों से भरा हुआ ये rough terrain. They preferred to live and work here rather than lead, sumptuous lives. When they met the biggest leaders, I think this is a very important point. When they met the biggest leaders, they were filled with the zeal of missionaries. कोई complex नहीं था उनको leaders में मिलने से. Mahatma Gandhi, Pandit Nehru, Maulana Azad, they were very impressed and they wrote about it. These women didn't even realize what a momentous task they were accomplishing. And this is what Margaret referred to. उनको पता नहीं था कि वो क्या कर रही हैं, और कभी भी अगर ये इनिशिएटिव इस वक्त मैक्स वेबर फाउंडेशन वाले नहीं लेते तो पता ही नहीं चलता कि इन ख़वातीन का क्या कंट्रीब्यूशन था. And I want to talk a little bit about the primary Mazdoors who were Saleha, Abid Hussain and Gerda Phillips-Bourne. 10 years they overlapped, 1933 to 43. Gerda died in 43. Today, let us call them Jamia's invisible architects. Who were they? What brought them to Jamia? What did they build? Almost 90 years after Saleha and Gerda's arrival in Jamia, we are trying to discover the links, join the dots, and tell the story of Jamia's Khawatine Awwal. We will call them Jamia's Khawatine Awwal. Let me start on a personal note, क्योंकि यहाँ सालेहा आबिद हुसैन पे भी पेपर्स हैं, सुगरा मेदी पे भी पेपर्स हैं, सब पे पेपर्स हैं, मगर मेरा पर्सनल जो नोट है वो ये है कि सालेहा माय आंट, मेरी फूफी जान, माय फादर्स यंगर सिस्टर, शी अराइव्ड इन जामिया व्हेन इट वाज इन करोल बाग. इधर उधर स्कैटर्ड बिल्डिंग्स, स्टाफ मेंबर्स, मकतबा जामिया, तालीमी मरकज़, बोर्डिंग हाउस, इधर उधर दे वर स्कैटर्ड. कहीं कहीं जामिया वालों के घर थे, मगर कोई ख़ास उसमें आपस में इतना ज़्यादा लिंकेजेस नहीं थे. सालेहा was born in 1913 in Panipat. Panipat, not just लड़ाइयों के लिए नहीं, the battles of Panipat, it was known for its Sufi tradition. She was bright, studious, principled, and brought up in a family that was at once liberal and deeply religious. तो कुरान का जो तालीम थी वो होती थी. Maximum benefit of this liberal ethos, she gathered that maximum benefit. And she was married to Abid Hussain, who also subscribed to the same idea. So this was really like a maid in heaven. Abid Hussain was one of, ये हो चुका है, but just worth repeating, Abid Hussain was the one of the triumvirate who built Jamia, and the others were Zakir Hussain and Muhammad Mujib. राधे श्याम पाठक, जामिया के हिंदी टीचर जो थे, उनको कहते थे वो संगम हैं. Abid Hussain, Saraswati, Zakir Hussain and Muhammad Mujib were Ganga and Jamna. Ganga, Jamna, Saraswati, that was the trio, the triumvirate of Jamia. With a monthly income of rupees 75, they pledged to draw no more than that. 75 monthly income. Saleha and Abid Hussain, Saleha, Abid Hussain and Abid Hussain had a stream of boys and girls from Daipur who came in. उनके जो उनका गांव था वहाँ से बच्चे आते थे, लड़कियाँ घर में रहती थीं, लड़के हॉस्टल में रहते थे, तो उसी 75 में काम चलता था. Now I will ask Raza to intervene.
इस जुगलबंदी की तान अब मैं उठाता हूँ, और ये तान जो है वो राग हिंदुस्तानी में आधारित है. आपा सैयदा ने ज़िक्र किया कि तनख्वाहें किस तरह कितनी होती थीं. उससे ज़्यादा दिलचस्प बात यह है कि उस ज़माने में लोगों की तनख्वाह किस तरह से मुकर्रर की जाती थी. जब वो आते थे जामिया में तो अलावा उनकी तालीमी लियाकत के वो किस जगह पे मौजू हैं, उनके साथ ये पूछा जाता था कि उनकी क्या क्या ज़िम्मेदारियां हैं. एक दिलचस्प वाक़या प्रोफेसर E.J. कैलाट का था. ये मुझे नहीं पता चलता कि उन्होंने जामिया में कब ज्वाइन किया. ख़याल ये है कि ये इब्तिदाई दौर से जब अलीगढ़ में जामिया थी तब उन्होंने ज्वाइन किया. तमिलनाडु से उनका ताल्लुक़ था, कैम्ब्रिज से तालीम याफ्ता थे, और जब वो जामिया में आए और उनसे पूछा गया कि आपकी क्या क्या ज़रूरियात हैं सबसे अहम, तो उसमें बीवी बच्चों की तादाद भी पूछी जाती थी, रोज़ाना का ख़र्चा, यहाँ तक गनीमत था क्योंकि वो गैर शादीशुदा थे, लिहाजा कोई बच्चे या और ज़िम्मेदारियाँ भी नहीं थीं. लेकिन आखिरी ज़रूरत जो थी उसे देखकर जामिया वाले चौंक गए कि उनकी रोज़ाना की ज़रूरियात में एक चौथाई बोतल विस्की की भी शामिल थी. अब आप غور کریں اس زمانے کی جامعہ 20 اور 30 کی جامعہ، لیکن یہ روشن خیالی تھی کہ ان کے شراب پینے پہ کوئی اعتراض نہیں تھا، لیکن ان کی مجبوری یہ تھی کہ وہ اس کے لیے سرمایہ نہیں دے سکتے تھے، ان کو تنخواہ نہیں دے سکتے تھے۔ کیلاٹ صاحب اس پہ راضی ہو گئے کہ یہ خرچہ میں خود اپنے پیسوں سے کر لوں گا، کھانے کپڑے کے لیے کچھ دے دیا جائے۔ ایک واقعہ یہ ہے۔ ایک دوسرا واقعہ اور اسی سیلری سے اور تنخواہ سے متعلق ہے کہ ایک صاحب جامعہ میں ملازمت کر رہے تھے، کئی مہینے ہو گئے تھے، تنخواہ نہیں ملی تھی۔ اس بیچ میں ان کی والدہ کا خط آیا کہ بیٹا سنا ہے تم ملازم ہو گئے ہو، کئی مہینے ہو گئے ہیں، کچھ پیسے بھیجو تو میں برادری میں کچھ شیرینی تقسیم کر دوں۔ انہوں نے کہا بہتر ہے، جاتا ہوں۔ اور وہ گئے، جو اس زمانے میں ٹریجرر کہلاتے تھے، اردو میں خازن کہتے ہیں، ان سے کہا کہ بھائی، تو ناراض ہو گئے کہ ابھی 3 مہینے ہوئے ہو تنخواہ مانگ رہے ہو، جامعہ کے پاس پیسے نہیں ہیں۔ اچھا جائیے شیخ الجامعہ یعنی وائس چانسلر کے پاس جائیے۔ تو پروفیسر ای جے کیلاٹ، جن کا میں نے ابھی ذکر کیا، وہ آفیشیٹ کر رہے تھے۔ اب جو ڈائلاگ ہیں وہ بڑے دلچسپ ہیں۔ انہوں نے پوچھا کہ بھائی تم رہتے کہاں ہو؟ کہنا صاحب وہ جامعہ کا کمرہ ہے اس میں رہتا ہوں۔ کہنے اچھا، کھانے کا کیا ہے؟ کہنے وہ جامعہ کے طالب علموں کے ساتھ جو کمبائنڈ مطبخ جسے کہتے ہیں، ڈائننگ ہال ہے، وہاں میں کھانا کھاتا ہوں۔ کپڑے کا؟ کہنے وہ ہاسٹل کا دھوبی۔ بار بار کون ہے؟ کہ وہ بھی ہاسٹل کا ہے۔ کہنے پھر تمہیں پیسہ کس لیے چاہیے؟ تو اب انہوں نے بتایا کہ صاحب یہ ضرورت ہے، ذاتی ضرورت ہے، اور اس کے لیے مجھے پیسہ چاہیے۔ تو بہت اچھا۔ تو رجسٹرار صاحب، خازن صاحب بلائے گئے کہ ارے بھائی اسے کچھ دو، نیا ہے، ورنہ چھوڑ کے بھاگ جائے گا۔ ابھی کہانی ختم نہیں ہوئی۔ ان کو کچھ روپے دیے گئے، لیکن باقاعدہ ایگریمنٹ لکھوایا گیا کہ یہ جو آپ کو تنخواہ دی جا رہی ہے، تو جامعہ آپ کو جب کبھی بھی تنخواہ دیں گے تو پہلے یہ قرض اتاریں گے، یہ تنخواہ نہیں ہے، یہ آپ کو لون دیا جا رہا ہے۔
So the Jugalbandi continues. Bachpan mein, I saw Jamia when I was a child. I came with my parents for weekly visits to Saleha's house in Jamia. That's where I realized the import of frugal living. While everything was neatly ordered in the home, there was a quiet air of restraint. The meals, even at meals, we were careful to take small portions. That practice of restraint was familiar to me because I knew it in our home in Lutyens, Delhi. We lived in Lutyens, Delhi, and this was Jamia, weekly visits. تو ہمارے یہاں بھی چھوٹے چھوٹے پورشنز ہی لیتے تھے۔ Jamia's privation for us as children was more stark because there was no running water, no electricity. Along the Kacha road which led to the staff houses, there was bajri, paths lined with kikar and bubul trees. Water was pulled from the hand pump in the inner courtyard, plus from the well in the backyard. At night, there were lanterns, لالٹینیں ہوتی تھیں ہر کام کے لیے، کھانے کے لیے، پڑھنے کے لیے، ٹوائلٹ کے لیے، یا سمپلی سٹنگ اینڈ سوشلائزنگ۔ تو یہ میرا دیٹ واز دا ماحول ان وچ my first encounter with Jamia. 1 year before Saleha arrived, and Saleha, newly married, arrived in Jamia, something happened which in retrospect seems nothing short of a miracle. جیسے ایک معجزہ ہو گیا جامعہ میں۔ اب ہم دیکھتے ہیں when now we think of it, it was like a miracle. It's hard to imagine a fresh breath blew into Jamia's landscape from across the ocean. And that has been so well encapsulated by Margaret. A woman in her mid-30s, a German Jew named Gerda Philips-Born arrived.
जर्मन आपाजान तो 1932 में जामिया में शामिल हो गई थीं। 1933 में हमारी अम्मा सालेहा बिद हुसैन जामिया में शादी के बाद आईं। वो उस वाक़े का ज़िक्र करती हैं कि जो मैं पहली बार जामिया में आई शादी में, और मुझे जो रिसीव किया उसमें सब जामिया की ख़वातीन थीं, जिसमें बेगम डॉक्टर ज़ाकिर हुसैन थीं, जिसमें अख्तर जमाल फ़ारूक़ी थीं, अख्तर हसन फ़ारूक़ी साहब की बेगम, और दूसरी ख़वातीन थीं। लेकिन मुझे सबसे ज़्यादा हैरत, और मैं जिस बात पे चौंक गई, कि उसमें एक अंग्रेज़ ख़ातून भी थीं, कि उस ज़माने में हर गोरी ख़ातून को अंग्रेज़ कहा जाता था। तो वो बाद में ग्रेडा फिलिप्स बॉर्न उनका वो हुआ। तो दोनों में 1 साल का फ़र्क था कि 1932 में उन्होंने ज्वाइन किया, 1933 में सालिहा बिद हुसैन आई। और वो पहले दिन से जो उनकी दोस्ती और ताल्लुक़ात हुई, जो जामिया में हर जगह हर मौके के ऊपर साथ साथ रहीं, और जामिया में एक नई बेदारी उन्होंने पैदा की।
So here were the three men. The tall, handsome Pathan, Dr. Zakir Hussain from Qayamganj in Farrukhabad. Small, bright and serious Abid Hussain from Daipur in Kannauj. And the third, Muhammad Mujib, of slight build, effervescent, irreverent, from Lucknow. So 3 personalities. All 3 were from UP, and here they met, as Margaret said, Gerda, a woman who would soon change their lives and become integral to the institution they were about to build. Gerda Phillips Bourne, an accomplished linguist, musician, painter, and philanthropist. Something sparked between her and these Indian students. Those were the days of hard work and moderate play. Gerda was not a bystander, but a partner. Jamia existed in Berlin, right there in their midst. In her heart, it found a niche, teaching small children new pedagogy and uncharted pathways in a new country. We are looking forward to Margaret's paper, in which she's now almost finished her book, and that is something that it's going to be really exciting. But for me, the important thing is that no one anticipated the telegram which arrived on the morning of 1932, addressed to Zakir Hussain. It was from Gerda. That was the time that, as you would know, many Jews, German Jews, artists, intellectuals were fleeing from fascism in Germany. She would have gone anywhere but chose India. In 1932, Gerda arrived on the shores of Bombay, where Zakir Hussain received her. And the day after she arrived, she took charge of the new kindergarten. It was January 1, 1933, and she became Jamia's Rukun staff. I looked at the list of members, both during her lifetime and after her, recorded in, I was studying Abdul Ghaffar Madhouli's book. Uska naam kya tha? Abdul Ghaffar? Jamia Ki Kahani. And I was looking at Abdul Ghaffar Madhouli's book, and I studied all the rukuns of Jamia. Could not find the name of a single woman except Gerda Phillips Bourne. Her contribution is on record by, in various accounts, but not till Sughra Mehdi wrote her small book called Jamia's Apajan. Sughra Mehdi was the first one who wrote this little book called Jamia's Apajan. And now we look forward to Margaret's book, which will be a real treasure. Many incidents of her devotion to the wards have been anecdotally recounted. किस तरह से वो बच्चों के साथ उनका ख़ास जो एक ایک خاص ان کی جو محبت تھی بچوں سے اس کی اینیکڈوٹل ریکارڈنگ ہے. Her learning of Urdu was due to her little teachers, and they also learned little German vocabulary from Apajan. One account is of her visit to Lutyens, Delhi, where she collected the leftover toys from the German embassy for the children who had never seen these toys. They had only seen paper cutouts and paints. And Raza will tell you about that trip that she made to the German embassy and back to Jamia.
جیسا ابھی آپا سیدہ نے بتایا کہ آپا جان لیٹن دہلی میں ایمبیسیز میں جاتی تھیں اور وہاں پہ کرسمس کے زمانے میں خاص طور سے جو بچے ڈسکارڈڈ کھلونے ہوتے تھے وہ سب جمع کر کے لے آتی تھیں. ایک واقعہ سنانا ضروری ہے کہ ایک دفعہ وہ جب تانگے میں بھر کے سب لے کر آئیں اور جامعہ کے دفتر میں خازن صاحب حافظ فیاض صاحب سے تانگے کے کرایہ مانگا تو وہ ناراض ہو گئے کیونکہ ان کے خزانے میں 8 آنے یا جو بھی اس زمانے میں رہا وہ نہیں تھے. انہوں نے اپنی ناراضگی کا اظہار کیا اور آپا جان کی آنکھوں میں آنسو آ گئے. خازن صاحب اٹھ کے گئے اور سڑک کراس کر کے جو راشن کی دکان تھی وہاں سے کچھ پیسے لے کر آئے اور تانگے والے کو. یہ واقعہ ایک طالب علموں کے جلسے میں حافظ فیاض صاحب نے خود سنایا اور وہ اس وقت رو رہے تھے.
میری پھوپھی جان نے لکھا ہے, I don't know what made Gerda Phillips-Bond recognize that I could do some meaningful work, so she picked me out. I promptly asked her that we should be invited to enter the Jamia gatherings, which so far were wall-to-wall men. So she created a platform for us in the hall where we sat behind, چکوں کے پیچھے جو بیٹھی تھیں, where we sat behind the lattices. I recall the first event when we attended 8 lectures of Khalida Adib Khanum, the Turkish feminist and writer. People had come, I'm now quoting from Saleha Abid Hussain, except I've translated it in English. People had come from far to attend these lectures. Gandhi ji, Maulana Azad, Dr. Iqbal and Sarojini Naidu. I still remember, quoting Saleha, I still remember when this Bulbul-e-Hind was singing praises of women of the country, how delighted Jamia's women were sitting in the gallery. How the Jamia community came to value and ultimately love the woman who was initially referred to only as German Mem Sahab. That will be recounted in the next 2 sessions. My takeaway from this jugalbandi of these 2 women is a must-make film by filmmakers perhaps trained at Jamia's MCRC. Gerda and Saleha, 2 women, products of 2 cultures, distinct, different, distant, nothing in common. Not language, not dress, not belief. But there was one factor which brought them close. That was their love for Jamia. More than that was their common belief, ek insani rishta, the human family, which transcended geographies, even religion. Ab look at the contrast. جامعہ میں صالحہ جو تھیں وہ ہوم ٹرف پہ تھیں, سب کچھ کر سکتی تھیں ڈسپائٹ دا ہارڈ شپس آف جامعہ's لائف, ود دا کمفرٹ آف اے ہوم اینڈ سپورٹ آف اے انڈرسٹینڈنگ ہسبینڈ. بٹ ان گرڈا's case there was nothing familiar. Alien turf, simplest living, conservative colleagues. She must have seen and also sensed the entrenched Muslim-Jewish dichotomy plus intense patriarchy. The stark location of an upcoming institution was as different as it could be from Berlin. میں تو کبھی برلن گئی نہیں, but the woods, the gardens, the ballets, the symphonies, the literary gatherings, and now Jamia. These three, and the three who had blended into the Berlin, Abid, Zakir and Mujib, they who had blended into the milieu of Berlin must have been very busy in the struggle of an institutional survival. Different accounts by eyewitnesses like Abdul Ghaffar Madholi in his book Jamia Ki Kahani, and Ghulam Haider, the iconic children's literature person, and chroniclers like Sughra Mehdi reveal only that she had special access to Zakir Sahib. Of Saliha, I want to record my personal memories because there are two presentations to cover her enormous corpus. She was assiduous worker, no pushover, और हम बच्चे जो थे, we were always in little bit in awe of her. So one of her missions, according to Saliha's and other accounts, Gerda's mission was to bring Jamia women out of the homes into the mainstream of institutional life. And one such incident, which I mentioned in 1935, was when the Turkish ideologue Halida Adib Khanum came to the Karol Bagh campus.
उन्नीस 1935 में दो अहम वाक़यात जामिया की ज़िंदगी में हुए। पहली मार्च 1935 में जामिया मिल्लिया के ओखला में उनकी इमारत का संग बुनियाद रखा गया। दूसरा वाक़या ये था कि उसी बरस खालदा अदीब खानम तुर्की से तशरीफ़ लाई और जामिया में उन्होंने 8 लेक्चर्स दिए, और उन 8 लेक्चर्स को जो सदारत की वो उस वक्त की अहम तरीन शख्सियात ने की, जिनमें डॉक्टर अंसारी, महात्मा गांधी, मौलाना शौकत अली, सैयद सुलेमान नदवी, डॉक्टर मोहम्मद इकबाल, भूला भाई देसाई, सरोजनी नायडू और भगवान दास। ये पहला मौका था कि जब ख़ास तौर से जामिया की ही नहीं बल्कि दिल्ली की सभी ख़वातीन के लिए पर्दे का इंतज़ाम किया गया। ये वो ज़माना था कि दिल्ली की ख़वातीन ने इन तमाम हज़रात के नाम तो सुने थे लेकिन कभी देखा नहीं। ये पहला कदम था कि उन ख़वातीन ने जामिया के तवस्सुत से इन तमाम हज़रात के दर्शन कर लिए।
In 1933 was the year when Gerda and Saliha began their Jamia life. In that year was established Anjuman-e Khawateen. अब ये लोग अपने institutions establish कर रहे हैं जहाँ कभी कुछ नहीं था। Anjuman-e Khawateen. Its first chair was Begum Asifa Mujib, and its first secretary was Saliha Abid Hussain. In the same year, on Foundation Day, a women's jalsa was held with Begum Muhammad Ali in the chair. Speeches explaining why Jamia was conceived were made by her and Saliha with a fundraising appeal. Abdul Ghaffar Madholi records Apajan's joy when 400 to 500 women took part in this jalsa. From Saliha's own writings, I glean that the relationship was consistent over 10 years until Gerda passed away in 1943. Saliha was many years her junior, found herself listening and following Apajan. Her persistence to get women to participate added grist to Saliha's hereditary feminism. और ये hereditary feminism मैं इसलिए कह रही हूँ कि वो तो great granddaughter थी मौलाना हाली की, जिन्होंने 1905 में he talks about the rights of women. He was the first feminist poet. तो उनकी जो hereditary feminism थी उससे उसको गर्डा की कंपनी से उसको बहुत एक तरह से encouragement ملی تھی. Most women, most of them, including herself, were in burqa, but were urged to come out to Jamia events. Soon they began to organize their own events, which were often led by Saliha. Let me name some of the events. They were mehfils, milads, majlises, mushairas, plays, baitbazi. These were women exclusive events, but they also began to enter gatherings which were traditionally for men. I write this piece, I look at a formal photograph that you see there. A formal photograph of a dated 1934 of a beautiful and demure Gerda as she sat with Dr. M.A. Ansari, Khaja Hassan Nizami, and the senior leadership of Jamia. Dr. Zakir Hussain and Professor Abid Hussain stand behind the seated row. Gerda lies in Jamia's Qabristan. Her epitaph was written by another woman, a woman who never saw her. उनके कब्र पे जो खुतबा है वो ऐसी खातून ने लिखा है जिन्होंने कभी गर्डा को देखा नहीं था. But at the end of her small book, Sughra Mehdi, poetic justice that Sughra Mehdi, spiritual daughter of Saliha Abid Hussain, should write this khutbah. And I quote, "What Apa Jan did for Jamia proves one inexorable fact. No matter what differences exist in geographies, culture, language, if we do good work in partnership and with true hearts, then all differences will melt away." So that was Sughra Apa's vision. During the next 2 days, friends, several women of Jamia will appear before you, probably for the first time. This is indeed a historical moment for which we, and when I say we, I mean a lot of my friends sitting here, we are family. We owe a debt of gratitude to Max Weber and to Max Weber Foundation and to Margaret. These women will silently surround you in this room in posters, which was designed by the artist Ranish Ray, a labor of love because of his deep commitment to Jamia and its foremothers. Some Khawateen have been featured here, some have not, but many dot the landscape of the mind. And this is my little contribution, like Jamia's triumvirate, Zakir, Abid, Mujib, there was a female triumvirate also, Shah Jahan, Asifa, Saliha. Shah Jahan Begum married to Zakir Hussain, Saliha married to Abid Hussain, Asifa married to Muhammad Mujib, while Zakir Hussain and his two colleagues, Abid Hussain and Muhammad Mujib, transported a dream into the reality, the women who stood shoulder to shoulder along with their husbands, and how they did it, I will ask my friend and my brother Raza to explain that.
जामिया की ख़वातीन में आसफ़ा मुजीब और सालिहा आबिद हुसैन के बारे में तो अलग अलग पेपर पढ़े जाएंगे, लेकिन सिर्फ़ एक नाम जो रह जाता है वो शाहजहाँ बेगम का है. किसी दानिश्वर ने लिखा है कि जो अफराद दुनिया में अपने कारनामों की वजह से मुमताज़ और मशहूर हो जाते हैं, उनकी कामरानी और शोहरत का सबब ये है कि उन्हें काम करने का माहौल मैसर हुआ, और इस माहौल के बनाने में ऐसी शख्सियतों का बहुत बड़ा हाथ है जो कि पस पर्दा रहती हैं. उनकी खिदमत, रफ़ाक़त, ईसार और दिलसोज़ी का मकसद उन्होंने अपने शौहरों का साथ दिया. ये जुमले शाहजहाँ बेगम यानी बेगम डॉक्टर ज़ाकिर हुसैन पर पूरी तरह से सही साबित होते हैं. शाहजहाँ बेगम उत्तर प्रदेश के एक छोटे से कस्बे कायमगंज में पैदा हुई. अपने दादा की बहुत लाडली थी. बचपन से ही उनको उस ज़माने में जो घरों में चीज़ें शौक़ होते थे, खिलौने वगैरह के बजाय जानवर पालने का था, तो ये शौक़ उनको बचपन से था कि वो मुर्गियाँ भी पाल रही हैं, बकरियाँ भी पाल रही हैं और गाय भी पाल रही हैं। करौल बाग में ये सहूलियात मैसर नहीं थी, लेकिन जब वो ओखला में आई तो उनकी जगह बहुत थी और इस घर में उन्होंने अपने शौक़ पूरे हुए, जिसके दो पर्पस थे। एक तो उनका शौक़ पूरा हो रहा था और दूसरे ये कि उनकी बेटियों को असली दूध मिल जाता था, मुर्गियों से अंडे मिल जाते थे वगैरह वगैरह। वो उनकी शादी उस वक्त हुई थी डॉक्टर ज़ाकिर हुसैन साहब से कि जब वो अलीगढ़ में तालीम हासिल कर रहे थे और उसके बाद उनकी एक बड़ी बेटी की पैदाइश हो चुकी थी, सईदा खुर्शीद साहिबा की, और फिर ज़ाकिर साहब जर्मनी चले गए। वहाँ से जब वो वापस आए तो जामिया करौल बाग में थी और वो उनके कामों में मसरूफ़ हो गए और अपनी बेगम से कहा कि तुम कायमगंज में रहो, यहाँ आने की ज़रूरत नहीं है, वो हालात ऐसे नहीं हैं। लेकिन वो उनकी बेगम भी कायमगंज की पठानी थी। कुछ दिन उन्होंने इंतज़ार किया और उसके बाद नौकर को साथ लेके और सामान बांध के एक दिन वो जामिया मिलिया में वारिद हो गई। तो एक हंगामा हो गया कि भाई इनको ठहरने का इंतज़ाम करना है, कहाँ रहेंगी। तो उन्होंने कहा मैं जैसे सब लोग रहते हैं मैं वैसे रह लूँगी, और उन्होंने शाना बशाना ज़ाकिर साहब के साथ रहकर जामिया की सारी तकालीफ बर्दाश्त की और पूरा उसमें उन्होंने उनका साथ दिया। ओखला में आने के बाद उनकी मसरूफियात भी बढ़ गईं और कई वाक़यात ऐसे हैं, हालात अभी तक माशी हालात उस वक्त तक भी ठीक नहीं हुए थे, लेकिन कुछ वाक़यात ऐसे हैं कि मसूद हुसैन ख़ान जो उनके भतीजे थे, उन्होंने कहा कि घर में काम मदद करने के लिए तो कुछ लोग थे, लेकिन खाना वो ख़ुद पकाती थीं, क्योंकि खाने के लिए ज़ाकिर साहब की दो शराइत थी कि खाना मज़े का होना चाहिए और ख़ूब होना चाहिए, ख़ूब ज़्यादा होना चाहिए, क्योंकि वो बहुत खुश खुराक थे, अच्छा खाना खाते थे वो। मसूद साहब ने लिखा कि यह था कि वो ख़ास जो ज़माने का अंदाज़ था, नीचे बैठ के वो खाना पकाती थीं और ख़ास तौर से मेरे लिए गरम गरम रोटियां निकाल के देती थीं और मैं उनको खाता था। एक और वाक़या उन्होंने दिलचस्प लिखा कि एक बार ज़ाकिर साहब ने अपने कुछ तालिब इल्मों को घर पर मदऊ कर लिया कि भाई खाना हमारे साथ खाना, बताना भूल गए। अब वो बेचारी क्या करती, तो जो भी सालन पकाया था उसको ज़रा मिक़दार ज़्यादा करने के लिए क्वांटिटी उन्होंने कुछ पानी की तादाद मिक़दार बढ़ा दी। अब ज़ैदी वो ज़ाकिर साहब का जुमला बहुत मशहूर है, उन्होंने मसूद साहब से कहा कि मियाँ ज़रा लंगोट बांध के डुबकी लगाओ, शायद कोई बोटी मिल जाए इसमें से जी। और खैर इसमें जब मैंने आपसे ज़िक्र कर दिया कि उनके बचपन के और वो भी हो गए, उनको जामिया से इस कदर मोहब्बत थी कि उनकी ये ख्वाहिश रहती थी कि जामिया में ही रहें। ज़ाकिर साहब गवर्नर बने, वाइस प्रेसिडेंट बने। सुना मैंने ये है उनके नवासियों से कि उन्होंने कहा कि भाई गवर्नर हाउस में या प्रेसिडेंट हाउस में मैं उसी शर्त पे जाऊंगी कि जब मेरी गाय भी साथ जाएगी वहाँ पे। वो तो मुमकिन नहीं हुआ, लेकिन ये कि हर सूरत ये उनका वो था। और आखिर में मुझे एक हसरत मोहानी का एक शेर याद आता है कि दिलों को फ़िक्र दो आलम से कर दिया आज़ाद, तेरे जुनून का खुदा सिलसिला दराज करे। यानी मतलब ये है इसका कि इन ख़वातीन ने अपने आप को इस कदर जामिया के मसाइल और उसमें ज़म कर दिया था और अपने शौहरों को बिल्कुल आज़ाद कर दिया था कि तुम्हारा जो जुनून है, जो मकसद है जामिया की तामीर और उसके बढ़ाने के लिए, अपना सारा वक्त उसमें इस्तेमाल करो। उन हजरात को भी फ़िक्र नहीं थी कि घर में राशन कहाँ से आता है, रात को के पानी है या नहीं है, क्योंकि ज़माने में कुछ भी नहीं था यहाँ के ऊपर, और वे लोग अपना जुनून यानी जामिया की तामीर में लगे रहे।
So now we are drawing to an end. So I'll just summarize by talking of these are the primary women, but there were many others. So very briefly, I will talk about some of the women. I don't think even they may not have papers to them, papers as topics. There are many others which we have not been able to place even on the walls of this venue. Most of them I had the good fortune of meeting. One by one they rise on the mind. Nabila Begum, who was loved and respected for her lifelong commitment to teaching the Quran with explanation to young girls, especially from surrounding villages. Her home was open to women and girls, Muslims for Quran and others for teaching core values of life. The women she counseled whenever they appeared to be the women she counseled whenever she saw that they were in difficult circumstances. There was Mushir Fatma. There's a paper on Mushir Fatma by her granddaughter, who's a scholar, teacher par excellence, who started Jamia's first Montessori school. Dressed in a simple cotton sari, she participated with male colleagues on committees and university affairs. Her companion was a woman called Jamal Fatma, who was known to all of us as Mimmi Apa, and who was her capable successor in primary education. Tahira Khatun, Asifa Mujib's sister, who came when Asifa auntie lost her son, and she came to be with her sister and spent her whole life, but her life was with the sister as well as looking after small children. And there's a beautiful photograph of her with a small child, which is, I think, an all-time classic right here. Another woman who featured separately was a woman called Habiba Taba, who arrived from Qayamganj with her husband, Ghulam Rabbani Taba. Both husband and wife came from privilege, but blended beautifully with Jamia's arduous life. And Taba Sahab was Khurshid Sahab's brother. So again, part of the large family. With limited resources, she ran a household which overflowed with invited and uninvited guests. अपने यार्ड में उन्होंने अपने घर के सामने उन्होंने एक शेड बनाया था जिसमें 2 मूढ़े पड़े थे, विकस स्टूल्स, और एक बानों की चारपाई, a jute charpai, which was an unending stream of visitors. Another interesting thing is, and that really shows, the mindset of these women. She was strict as well as indulgent with her daughters and their friends. When drama rehearsals went beyond the curfew, she personally arrived at the Jamia amphitheatre accompanied by an old retainer, much to the discomfort of the actors and the director. 2 phenomenal women who will feature in separate presentations are Siddiqa Kadwai and Qudsiya Zaidi, both of whom, and Siddiqa Kadwai and Qudsiya Zaidi are right there before you. Both of them I met and I was mesmerized by their persons. There are separate presentations, and I feel so humbled that I could breathe the same air as these women. And then finally is one woman who will also be presented separately, but about whom I need to speak a few sentences. She was very close to me through all the peaks and troughs of life, and it was her phenomenal work, Hamari Jamia, which became my lodestar for writing this overview. Sughra Mehdi completed this last book on her deathbed. As she lay dying, she completed this book. And I have, on other occasions, and I'm especially referring to Professor Mujib here, on many occasions I have suggested that Jamia should undertake to bring this book in English, because it is so valuable. She wrote this book on her in her dying bed, and from her daily conversations and now from her written words, I have gleaned my knowledge. But I can no longer run to her for my doubts. But Sughra Mehdi's friend, a man called Ghulam Haider, he answered many of my questions. He told me of a woman called Sufia Ashraf, wife of the iconic communist leader K.M. Ashraf. She was the first woman to act with men in Jamia plays. Not only that, she prepared a jhanki, Jamia's jhanki, for the Republic Day parade in the mid-50s. Theatre in Jamia flourished under the legendary Abdul Sattar in 1940s and 50s. But this was a boys' only domain. It was in the decade of the 50s that girls began to mount the stage. Some names come to mind: Sughra Mehdi, Azra Taba, Saida Salamat, Adiba Khatun. And there's a small incident which is very interesting, which Raza will recount briefly, and then we will end this presentation.
जामिया में ड्रामों का जिक्र हो रहा है। ये उस ज़माने की बात है कि जब जामिया में स्टेज पर लड़कियां नहीं आती थीं, लेकिन ख़वातीन जामिया और सहेली सभा में ड्रामे लिखे जाते थे और पेश किए जाते थे। ख़वातीन अव्वल में कभी शायद आप तसव्वुर करें कि वो तसव्वुर में देखें कि ख़वातीन जामिया में से एक ख़ातून को मजबूरी में स्टेज पर आना पड़ा और एक मेल पार्ट करना पड़ा। हुआ कुछ यूँ कि सालिया आबिद हुसैन ने एक ड्रामा लिखा कि जिसमें एक मेल पार्ट चचा जान के उसमें कैरेक्टर था, और वो जिन खातून को तैयार किया गया, तय हुआ कि ये करेंगी, उनको डायलॉग याद कराए गए, लेकिन ऐन मौके पर उन्होंने इनकार कर दिया। अब करीब इसके था कि वो ड्रामा कैंसिल कर दिया जाए कि भाई अब नहीं हो सकता मेन कैरेक्टर जो है। तो जामिया के ख़वातीन ने इसरार किया कि नहीं, ये ड्रामा तो होना ही चाहिए। फिर उनसे सालिया आबिद हुसैन से कहा कि ड्रामा आपने लिखा है, डायरेक्शन आपने दी है, सारे डायलॉग आपको तो याद हैं, तो आप ख़ुद क्यों नहीं करती ये ड्रामा। तो तसव्वुर कीजिए कि वो खातून अव्वल सालिया आबिद हुसैन ने स्टेज पर आईं और उसके बाद उन्होंने उसमें ड्रामा किया, और बहुत फ़ख्र से बताती हैं कि उस जलसे में बेगम पटौदी, बेगम भोपाल भी शरीक हुई थीं, और उन्होंने उनको 5 रुपए इनाम में दिए थे।
और इसी कॉन्टेक्स्ट में जामिया के मुशायरों में young poets like Sayyida Farhat still wearing a burqa. सालिया आबिद हुसैन ने कहा कि तुम जाके अपनी नज़म पढ़ो, and she recited in a burqa to a thunderous applause and wah-wah from the crowds. So friends, at the end we remember few other people. Amtur Rahman Mohsini from Gangoh in Saharanpur, who came with her daughters and became Jamia's BG, not BBG, but BG. Door always open for neighborhood children. She nurtured and fed them, at the same time instructing them in her unique manner. Parents knew that if their children were missing, they would be safely in BG's house. Some women came to Jamia for employment. One's name is Najma Sultan. She was from Bhopal, but once here, Jamia became her home. Now, all these names that I'm throwing at you, all of them need to be explored, maybe in video clips, maybe in films, maybe in articles, but these are just like nuggets that you can elaborate. She later Najma Sultan moved to Barak Mata Center in Matia Mahal, which was established by Siddiqa Kidwai, who features here, one of Jamia's pioneers, who will be featured later as a paper. Then there was a woman called Van Leela Shah. Van Leela Shah is also somewhere here. Van Leela Shah, who came with her husband Jaggu Bai from Ahmedabad. I have Shiba sitting here from Ahmedabad, come all the way for this conference. And she came with her husband Jaggu Bai to teach art and was given the charge of the girls' hostel. She and her husband became integral part of Jamia's Mahal. Other names like Kulsoom Ashraf, Aisha Haris are found in various tazkiras. Other personalities which need to be written about, which I have learned from Hamari Jamia, are Akhtar Jamal, Wasika Halim, Bushra Azmi, Nilufar Irshad, Farida Nayyar, Saadat Fatma, Sayyida Farhat, Muhabbat Fatma, Itrat Qidwai, Sushila Dutt, Begum Salima Qadri, and I may be missing names. The best outcome of this conference, I must say again, would be if some ardent scholars and filmmakers explore these gems. So let me end. I think we've taken a lot of time, but I think it needed to be said. And let me end with a couplet. Again, Azra Naqvi is all over this. So here is a couplet by Azra Naqvi, and I'll read it in Urdu and I'll translate it also. गुजरे हुए इन लोगों की मीरास मिली है, गुजरे हुए इन लोगों की मीरास मिली है, बरसों की रियाजत का समर हमको मिला है. Those who passed on bequeathed all to us. Of their arduous labor, we are the inheritors. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Sayyida and Raza Mehndi. I think we've heard a very important introduction and a very interesting account and anecdotes about the women of Jamia. I think in drawing upon what has just been said, I might just raise a few comments. I think the role of some of the iconic women in the founding moment of Jamia Millia Islamia is indeed a fascinating subject. As has been said, we know a fair bit about the role of Muslim women in the making of other institutions, for example, the Aligarh Muslim University and institutions in Lucknow and so on. But we know very little about the role of Jamia's women. They have remained invisible in public perception and public knowledge. There's considerable interest and knowledge, as Sayyida pointed out, about the founding fathers or the founding men of Jamia Millia. But we simply don't know enough about the role of women who had an influence on the foundation, the development, and the everyday running of Jamia Millia. But the point is that most of these women were were either wives or sisters or daughters of the founders of Jamia Millia, with the exception of a few. Gerda Philipsborn, popularly known as German Apajan, was certainly one such exception. Mushir Fatma, later director of the Jamia Nursery, was another. But as has been said, and I think one cannot say enough about the German Apajan, because she was an extraordinary woman who devoted her life to the making of Jamia. So was another woman who has been mentioned, and that is Halide Edip, the great Turkish intellectual and erudite scholar who visited India and gave lectures at the invitation of Mahatma Gandhi. She delivered 8 lectures in Jamia Millia. My husband, Mushir, in his book, Between Modernity and Tradition, Halida Edip's Encounter with India, provides an account of Halida Edip's experiences of her visit to India and her descriptions of the anti-colonial struggle, the leaders of the national movement, and the participation of women in struggling amongst several other significant signposts of history. It is no exaggeration to say that Halida Edip took India by storm. Her lectures, published in Mushir's book Inside India, have by far the most detailed account of Jamia and the making of Jamia at that moment. She admired the Jamia movement for its harmonious intermingling of anti-imperialism and tradition, and Indian nationhood with an Islamic identity. But there's virtually no reference to Inside India and to Halida Edip in standard accounts of Indian nationalism, perhaps because she asks questions that do not fit into the established historical canons. Now, Muslim women, and I think that is a point that we really need to think about, Muslim women, even today, are perceived as submissive, fragile, and too weak to fight for their rights. This is questioned, however, by the stories and contributions of these Jamia women, some of which we have heard in the account by Sayyida and Raza Mehdi. But most of these women were working behind the scene. Hence, inscribing these women into the narratives or making them more visible as social actors is a very difficult undertaking. Nonetheless, I think, and that is the point, nonetheless, the life and work of these writers, educationists, and social workers breaks the myths about the traditional conception of Muslim women. It marks a repudiation of the cultural essentialism that has long produced, within quote, the Muslim woman as a discursive object, especially when compared to women of other denominations or communities. Muslims in India are still seen as an obvious community that draws its specificity from the inherent nature of its religion. So they're still seen as a religious category. But the case of Jamia women, I think, is interesting precisely because these women are not particularly radical. Let's be quite clear about that these women are not particularly radical and not necessarily public activists in the conventional sense, but at the same time, they were not performing traditional or assigned roles. They were middle of the road actors, and some of them were extremely self-effacingly and unassumingly involved in the processes of social change and education, just like any other women. And I do think that the groundbreaking work on the social and cultural history of women by Gail Mino, Barbara Metcalf, Margaret Purnau, Sylvia Batuk, and most recently, the young scholar Asia Alam, to mention just a few, have shown the significant role of Muslim women, and many of them have written and striven, as we now know from these accounts, for women's rights since the early decades of the 20th century. And I think in this context, the seminar is extremely important because the role of Jamia women provides a point of departure for understanding the challenges facing Muslim women in post-independence India. Given the public activity of these women, what is most noteworthy is how, as I think has been pointed out by Margaret in her introduction and by Nishad Zaidi as well, how the conventional archives and even feminist scholarship has left them behind. It has actually been left to Jamia women themselves and to families of Jamia women to recover their, to speak about their role, to recover their role, to celebrate their role. But that said, I think we need to know a lot more about their role in education and reform. And I think we must also, I hope you won't mind this, but we must also be mindful of the fact that most of these women came from privileged sections of society, from privileged classes. And we need to know a lot more about the ordinary women of Jamia and the activities of the ordinary women of Jamia, and not just, obviously, the women from these iconic families who were involved in the founding of Jamia Millia. Perhaps the seminar and the work being done by many scholars today, and I should think this particular seminar will provide important leads into the wider social and cultural history of women in India. No doubt the seminar is raising extremely important questions through the exploration of what Nishad Zaidi very eloquently put it as as an exploration of alterity or alternative archives. And I think, again, she put it very, very nicely that Jamia women cannot be forgotten. And I think the seminar is a testimony to the fact that these women cannot be forgotten. They will be recovered. But as I said, we certainly need to know a lot more about their role in the making of Jamia. So the point is not just to talk about the women of Jamia, but their role in the making of this great institution, the Jamia Millia Islamia. And finally, I think Margaret raised a very important, if you will, historiographical and methodological issue when she spoke about two kinds of knowledge. And I think that's what really, if you like, the seminar will hope to achieve. And she spoke about two kinds of knowledge. One is family memories, and we've heard a great deal about that this morning. And the second about gender histories and social histories. And again, she put it so beautifully when she said that, and I presume that is a hope, that the twain shall meet, which is to say the twain of these two strands of historiography, of knowledge shall meet. And it looks like in this seminar, there's every chance that the twain shall meet. Thank you. So now I think we still have another 15 minutes or so for some questions or comments, or perhaps recollections from about Jamia from people present here.
So please ask questions or comments. I mean, everything is welcome. If you have some more memories to share, we welcome that as well. Yes.
I think my voice is quite loud. मिस फिलिप्स बॉन्ड के बारे में मैंने बहुत सुना था. जामिया से मेरा बहुत ज़्यादा ताल्लुक़ है. मेरी माँ का जिक्र हुआ, सैयदा फरहत का मैं मजमून भी पढ़ूंगी. लेकिन मैं ये बताना चाह रही थी कि मैंने कनाडा में एक कोर्स किया था, ग्रेजुएट डिप्लोमा अर्ली चाइल्डहुड एजुकेशन. तो उसमें मुझे आई हैड टू राइट अ टर्म पेपर ऑन माय अर्ली चाइल्डहुड एजुकेशन. और मैंने जामिया मिलिया की नर्सरी के बारे में जो लिखा, जो मैं जब गई थी, आई एम 72 years old now, so you can imagine how long it has been. So फिर मैंने स्कूल पूरा I just described what we used to do in that. Then I mentioned Miss Bond's name and all that. I didn't have all the details. So the professor said, how come we didn't know about this kind of a nursery and that kind of a woman who went from there? Because जो वो मॉन्टेसरी की सीख के आई थी, मैं समझती हूँ दुनिया में अभी तक मैंने बहुत नर्सरीज देखी हैं, कनाडा में, यहाँ सऊदी अरब में मैं इन्वॉल्व रही. लेकिन जैसी वो नर्सरी थी, आपा जान और मिम्मी आपा ने जिस तरह से उनका ख्वाब, उनकी टीचिंग मिस फिलिप्स बॉन्ड की उसको जो दिखाए थे हकीकत, मिस फिलिप्स बॉन्ड को तो मैंने नहीं देखा, लेकिन शी इज़ वेरी मच पार्ट ऑफ माई लाइफ. I just wanted to comment on this. Thank you.
Very enjoyable and very knowledgeable experience. I've really enjoyed it. I'm so glad I came. Thank you.
I don't know how appropriate this is, but I want to just remember two incidences. One of them when I first got married and I entered the house, and I considered myself a very liberated woman. I never covered my hair. And I went to Amma's room, that's Shahjahan Begum. I went to her room and she looked at me and she said, Bibi, dupatta oda karo. And my mother-in-law, Saida Begum, said to her, Amma, zamana badal gaya. So she said, Acha badal gaya? Tab to theek hai. The other incidents when I was sitting at table, see, my father was a bureaucrat, so I got transferred from one place to the other. And the result was that my Hindi was totally up the pole. And when I came into this house of Urdu speakers, I was very, very intimidated. I was sitting at table, and Salman's nieces, among them, the oldest is here. When I started to speak, they all started laughing. And my mother-in-law called them and said, listen, if you laugh at her, she will never speak in Hindi. And the only one who will suffer is me, because everybody else understands and can speak English. So please, for heaven's sakes, don't do that. And to her, I credited the fact that when I fought an election in UP, a Christian from Karnataka, fought an election from UP in 2002, my mother-in-law actually said that my Urdu was very good. And that is only because of her telling these children, please, for heaven's sake, don't laugh at her when she speaks. The other thing I have to tell you is, a little known fact is that when, after Zakir Saab passed away, Indira Gandhi offered a Rajya Sabha seat to my mother-in-law. because she was the real politician in the family, not my father-in-law. He was a bureaucrat. He worked with the Delhi Transport Corporation. He was not the politician. My mother-in-law was a politician. She was the one who took Indira Gandhi to Chandni Chowk after when she made her comeback. But it was she who said, no, give the seat to my husband. And she stepped back. But she was a real politician, and she was the one really who should be written about.
Am I audible? I'm fascinated by the proposed project, because I see this as a starting point of taking up a project in some direction, and I think it's quite a useful project in which Jamia is one site where the Muslim Women's Agency and voices need to be recovered, and similarly other institutions too. For instance, we think that we have recovered Muslim women's role in the making of institutions in other places, but to my very limited reading, I think that it's in a very nascent stage that we may count women, and women figures may appear, but their role and their agency in that making of institutions is something that is not there. And that is the reason when we look at the gallery and our archives, these are all men showcasing, and it's quite a political, what we say, landscape that we see, that women are missing, and it becomes really difficult to recover women. And it's a very, I would congratulate the initiative, and have been rather thinking of doing it myself for AMU, which I think is not there. One thing that I since it has been, we have seen the recounting primarily of women's contribution who were members of the family, as Professor Zoya Hassan has pointed out. I was really, I'm looking forward to the role of women students. What are women students doing on the campus, and the young teachers or the teachers, how are they extending spaces, right? Or rather than just looking at the soft things that women were doing, rather than where they also, when they were listening to this, to the speeches, what impact did they have? So we do not have those voices coming as to the influence of the thought and what were they thinking, and the writings definitely, we need to cull that out, but at the same time, the influence of the thought, and then how did they impact on their actions? So
That's Shada Banu, yeah, from AMU, yeah.
Hello. It's been delightful to listen to all of you. Since the time
Your name, please?
I'm Devika. I'm Devika from Jamia Millia Islamia.
Okay, please, go ahead.
So since the time I received the poster for this program, I had been a little uncomfortable, just for the fact that we are talking of Jamia's women, but then we have the first thing is the men, of Jamia. So why did we not have the women right on top? That's what.
Yeah, okay. You want to, yeah, Margaret.
I think the man had an important role, but if you look at the poster very carefully, you see that the men are smaller than the women and that they are blurred. And that was a very specific statement we wanted to make.
Yeah. Any other comments? Mujibur Rahman, would you? Yeah. Yes, please. Introduce.
Yes, I'm Francesca Orsini. I will chair a session in the afternoon. I'm sorry I came late, but I just wanted to say, and we have here a, master of conceptual history, but I picked the phrase "working behind the scenes," and I think what we had here, just this witness, was really a little list of what behind the scene means, and I think this would be a real contribution that your study would make to, to agency, to institutions, to politics, because of course women behind the scene is It's not something that we find only in Jamia, we find everywhere. And so what we had the kind of the quiet change. ठीक है ज़माना बदल गया है. So you make the point, but you change. No big fuss, no coming out, no behind the scene within the family. We had the language, again, we have a lot about language policy, about language, in public, but this kind of very quiet but powerful correction within the house about very very strong and very effective language exclusions or making fun or no, that can actually impact, as the lady said, a whole life. No? So change from being then too ashamed to speak in a language to instead, being fine with a language. And within, of course, multilingual families with strong language hierarchies outside, I think this fact of the behind-the-scene accommodation and quietly putting, rearranging the hierarchy is very important. And then the politics, the idea that I was talking to somebody recently about, the fact that in UP, there's going to be, so the women's reservation, but all the posters you see are men. And you say, so I asked somebody, so where are the women going to come from? and he said, well, the men, वो चुनाव तो आदमी लड़ते हैं, बाद में औरतें सामने आती हैं. No? So, I mean, this kind of, well, here was a different case, but this kind of, what does it mean behind the scene? What does it mean behind the scene? And how, I bet that your mother-in-law didn't stop being very political when your father-in-law became a member of the Rajya Sabha. So what did that mean? No? She didn't contest. I mean, she didn't become a member. She wasn't, but. So I think here we had, this nice little phrase behind the scene, and already some examples of how that would work, and how that helps us, not just recover the voice, but also, make a point about that it's not just about public activism, public statement, public this.
Yeah. Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. I'm Nazia Akhtar. I work on Hyderabad and Hyderabadi women's writings in Urdu. I'm grateful for the various research directions that the panel has been, brainstorming. And I would just like to add one thing to that. Something I think that really needs to be done urgently is comparative work between regions. Because let me just very quickly and very, very briefly, I know we are out of time, just tell you about the woman that I'm going to talk about tomorrow. Her name is Sughra Humayun Mirza, and Margaret, I think, has worked on her. And Sughra Begum spends 2 months in Germany during, a long European kind of time in Europe. And she meets these men, these Jamia men, and is hosted by them. They host her. She leads and participates in many kinds of discussions. And that whole period is just such a kind of, richly discussed and, debated aspect of her writing. I think there is great scope here for, a comparative back and forth and, that kind of discourse. And I hope that this workshop will inaugurate ways of doing that kind of work.
Thank you so much for this panel. My name is Sarah. I've worked on women actresses from the 1930s, so I'm very much curious and interested in women in the public sphere, but I'm also somebody who has lived all her life in Jamia. So this is a very kind of interesting and also like historically relevant kind of a seminar and conference for me. But I just wanted to say then, taking forward from what Francesca said and this kind of importance of the behind the scenes, we're talking about women in the public sphere, but there's also the space of the domestic sphere, which has been kind of pointed out as a kind of really important site for recovery of women's work and agency and voices, which I think think is really important. But then also that is a very challenging kind of recovery process. So how do we then, what are the kind of resources available to us to do that? How do we then, what are the kind of archives that would possibly make such a kind of historiographical journey in recovery? So this is just kind of, me thinking out loud, but I think that this is really important work that has already begun. And yes, like Nazia said, I think comparative work as well would be a great sort of way forward. So thank you very much.
Okay. Thank you very much for an extremely interesting conversation, panel, and also some of the very, very important and interesting comments from the floor, which gives us leads into further research. And I think this idea of what the takeaway will be behind the scenes. And so that's what, I think that's what our research should be about, what is happening behind the scenes and how that is connected to what is happening beyond the scenes, because I don't think we can just confine ourselves to behind the scenes. We need to connect to the real scene of action. Thank you very much. And this was a wonderful discussion, and I'm sure the rest of the conference will be just as wonderful. Yeah. Nishad, would you like to make any announcements?
No, I will just like to end with thanking the chair. Thank you so much for chairing the session so well. Thank you for your comments also, and thanks to the audience.